We need to bring them up to world standards by certifying them so that they can engage in economic activity on their own, but they can also take up the jobs that the new economy increasingly are churning out, but for which a lot of our people are not ready to fit into. In the case of information and telecommunications technology, we believe that we need to bring the infrastructure, the backbone, to every nook and cranny in our country. We believe that we've been too slow in actually building out the last mile, so that every household, every community, whether you're in the most rural part of our country or in urban centers, benefit from the same access. And how do we, one, create access on reasonable terms for people who can afford it? And how do we create free access for people who can't afford it as a public good? So for us, that's an important part of what we intend to do. In the area of foreign policy, we believe that our foreign policy must be matched with our overall development strategy and where we want to go as a country based on our development goals. Our foreign policy must support that. We believe that Grenada has a lot to offer in terms of technical cooperation, not just as a receiving state, but as a sending state. We believe that any modern society that's gone through the struggles we've gone through certainly has an opportunity to give to the world as well as to benefit from the world. So our whole approach in terms of what's different is framing a very serious development agenda that is, one, practical, that is, two, driven by developments that's taking place throughout the world, that is, three, it builds off the foundations that we've come from, four, that really helps us to situate our country, things like, people's participation of all the segments of the society, which we think is important. We think right now, it's sad that we have some segments that are not participating. By bringing everyone on board, including Grenadians abroad, we believe that we can forge that development agenda, not just a plan, but a development agenda that is going to be very different to what we see to what we see on the ground right now. That is really what we want to do as a TGM to improve people's lives.
All right, coming up next, we have a question from Callistra. Callistra, you're on the spotlight. Just go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Okay, I hope my audio works. My internet is stable at the moment. Good evening, TJ and Dr. Fine. Tell me what the
Callistra, we can hardly hear you. If you can take your video off, it may be better for us to hear your audio.
Okay, let me try that. I can hear it better now?
Slightly.
Better now?
Slightly better.
So have someone else ask a question, and when my stabilize a little bit more.
Okay, so Callistra,
okay,
we're not hearing you, but you can leave the message in the chat, and I'll read it out for everyone to hear. So you can type it out in our chat, and we will now move on. In the meantime, to Linda Stricker, I believe, has questions. Linda, you're unmuted, you're up.
Good night to you and everyone. I have a number of questions. Can Dr. Patrick Entwine, he was introduced as the chairman of this NGO. Can you tell us who are the other members of that NGO, the executive members in particular? What is the mission and objective of the TGM? What are the areas of focus, because it's registered as an NGO? And whether or not he has retired to date. That's it for now. I have others that I will ask as follow.
Thank you, Linda. That's about 6 questions. Let me take the last one. I'm not sure what you mean by retired. I don't have a plan to retire. Let me take the questions by order of the final one. I think you may need to mute so I can speak. So
we're hearing you.
Yes, the last one, I don't ever intend to retire. By the grace of God, I hope he gives me the strength so that I can continue. And when I can't continue in one vocation, that he gives me the strength to continue in another. So that's the question I want to speak to. And the next one, in terms of the executive, there is in fact a founders group that's made up of a number of persons. We can provide you with all the names of the executive. It's really an NGO, so it's very public, and the documents are filed as an NGO as well. We have members, Jennifer, we have Jennifer Rapier. We have a number of persons who are members of the executive. We have Kenneth Ned. We have many other persons. That's public information, and we will send the entire list to you. The other question about registered as an NGO, that's correct.
Aye.
I can only speak if I can not have the... Emily, I think you need to mute so I can... You need to mute others.
Yeah. You cheese and ketchup. You give me kisses.
Hello. Yes. The other issues regarding whether we are an NGO, we are a registered NGO. We are a civil society organization that intends to focus on a lot of public policy issues. So yes, we are an NGO. That is what it is. And we intend to continue being an NGO by dealing with issues of importance and relevance to the Grenadian society and to the Canadian people. I think those would answer at a top level the questions that were asked. I see a question in the chat from someone called Tessa. And let me answer the question from Tessa because I think it's important. TGM intends, the question is about the development of the rural community. TGM's approach to development in the way that we've discussed it so far, in the meetings and in the consultations and in the focus groups that we've had, is that our approach to development is that we must develop the infrastructure, the services and the opportunities in the rural community that makes the rural community no different from the urban community as a place to live and work and live. Live and work and play. And play, very important, play. So recreational facilities, economic opportunities, schools, health services. We intend that the rural community manifests absolutely no difference to, for instance, the communities in the urban area. So in short, we intend for communities in Munich and in Plaisance and in Tivoli to have the same characteristic features as, for instance, a community in Greanada or a community in Lansapine, right? We want the same services to exist throughout, whether it's internet quality, electrification, water, roads, all of it. That is our approach to rural development and to development as a whole. Because we believe if we don't do that, we're going to have a situation where we have nodes of development and resources are concentrated there. But we have areas and regions that will increasingly become more disadvantaged.
All right. We have one more question in the chat from Jonathan Paul. Are there currently any initiatives in place to engage the current government about the new economy? How does TGM plan to get their message across to the government in such a way that they may possibly see results coming out of it?
Well, I can only say that the government of Greanada has itself embraced the new economy in a number of initiatives, certainly in the way that they would have positioned the way that they saw development in certain sectors, and over the years we have seen some signs which would have suggested that the very clear radical direction that was required would have been taken. But in other areas, we have not seen the progress anticipated. So we believe that the concept of the new economy is not going to be a concept that there's going to be any war over or any conflict over. We think that there's going to be tremendous consensus around it. We believe that the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And while we may all agree on what the elements of the development strategy or plan is going forward, the way in which we intend to get to it is where I believe the difference is going to be. And I trust that the administration and certainly the opposition, not just the government, and other groups within the society are also able to rally around and to form a consensus on what are the elements that we ought to promote and how we ought to do it, because there are going to be sacrifices. And we're going to have to agree together on what are the sacrifices we want to make if we want to see this transition. And so how we intend to do it is through engagement. We intend to engage. We intend to engage in a manner that is going to offer our support. We intend to engage in a manner that is non-confrontational. We believe that it is only through dialogue and engagement that we can make progress on these important pillars. And that is what we intend to do. We do not anticipate any situation where there is going to be conflict, though there may be differences in the approaches on how we get there, differences in the speed, differences in the sequence in what comes first. That is really where we believe that there are going to be some differences. What we've done is that we want to continue building out the new economy, because although it's been mentioned in 2013, we believe that not a lot of emphasis would have been placed on it in a number of areas that are critical, that we think we can support the country in moving to.
All right, we'll be taking 2 more questions. The next one is from John Crow. John, you can unmute and ask your question.
John is muted. John is muted.
Are you still with us? Okay, so we'll move on.
No,
John, you're muted. You have to unmute. I invited you to unmute. Just accept the invite.
I'm doing, okay.
John, you muted again.
And I did it again.
All right. Ready to go now.
All right. Dr. Antoine, good evening, and good evening to everybody. Mental illness. I did not hear you mention anything on mental illness. I didn't hear anything mentioned about our seniors. The physically challenged, we have several people who are physically challenged in our country, and the whole notion of age discrimination. I heard you say that you don't have any plans to retire. I'm in your camp on that one, because we have a lot of retirees who have a lot to give, and we have them sitting in, like say, put them out to pasture, and nothing from them. Now, I want to ask this question: is this TGM a political party in disguise of a community organization or of an NGO? So I'll go back and listen to mental illness, seniors, the physically challenged, age discrimination.
Thank you very much, Mr. Crow. We have a working group on health and health services. And in that working group, I know that they've discussed the matter of mental illness. I know that they've discussed this along with many other issues, and I know that there is a feeling and there is also a consensus building in that group that we don't put enough resources in dealing with mental health, and that is certainly an area that needs to be focused on going forward. We believe that we have a number of persons who need medical attention for various mental illnesses for which our society has not yet put its arms around in terms of providing the medical attention for those persons. I know that's a consensus in that group. The elderly. We believe that the elderly have an extremely important role to play. One of the things that we have spoken about is how do we use the elderly as a resource to help, as it were, provide some apprenticeship, among other things, for young professionals coming out with academic or vocational or technical training in terms of values and ethics and professional, just in the way in which they act professionally and responsibly in a society where they're called upon to play certain important roles. And we believe that that is something that we have lost, this connectivity with, that we need to get back. A lot of societies which are fast growing recognize the value of the elderly as persons who sit on boards in community organizations, etc., and impart wisdom. That is a big part of what we call social capital, and we believe we've lost a lot of that. So when we talk about getting back social capital, we talk about how do we build these institutions so that these persons can play their rightful role in society. They can take their role at the head of the table, or they can take their role in the corner offices, or they can take their role in the workshops, or they can take their role in the farms, so that they can pass on traditional knowledge learning and also what they would have learned over the years. We believe that we need to get that back. TGM as a political organization, no. We have been very clear. We are an NGO. We are here to participate with the rest of NGOs in doing a number of things that we think need to be done now in our society. We believe, for instance, that the most important task that falls to us is helping to build an agenda that is a consensus agenda that we can then, with other groups, whether they are political parties, civil society organizations, persons who have a lot of expertise to offer, but don't want to or don't see a facility to contribute this. We want to build that agenda out, and we want to be able to have an agenda that we believe is forward-looking, rather than really discusses 5 and 10 and 15 years in the past. We want to focus on an agenda which will help to take country where it needs to go rapidly by leapfrogging, the development process in a number of areas. That is really where we want to go as an NGO which deals with these social aspects and critical issues in our society at this time.
Oh, all right. We are running out of time, but we will take one more question to cover health. One question from Alice. Alice, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. A driving factor for productivity is a healthy human resource base. Noting this, what are the plans for health?
Okay, so as I indicated before, we have a health group. We have a health group which has retired nurses, active doctors, retired doctors, doctors who work outside of Greanada. And the health group, they're focusing on, I know that for them, the most important thing would be primary health care. How do we deal with both primary health care and preventative health care by doing the right thing? We recognize, for instance, that the Caribbean is the region in the hemisphere which has the highest level of non-communicable diseases, hypertension, heart disease, diabetes, etc. We believe that a lot of that really stems from or not paying sufficient attention to the causal factors for these things at an early enough stage in the life cycle of a human being. So we believe that one of the things that we must discuss when we discuss health is how we discuss lifestyles, diet, nutrition, exercise, and healthy living. We believe that we need to take an approach that is really an approach throughout the life of the individual. It's a life cycle approach. And we believe that if we are able to do it, will cut the level of NCDs, hypertension, heart disease, diabetes, etc. Will cut that significantly. That's a big drag on our society. It's a big drag on our healthcare budget. The second thing is preventative medicine. Not preventative medicine, primary healthcare. Where do we deal with certain types of illnesses without having to go to the hospital, for instance, right? That's a matter of structuring. Can we create a polyclinic type structure throughout the country where certain types of services are provided, which takes the burden off our hospital system? So there are a tremendous amount of things that the health group is dealing with. Of course, this one is institutional, and then this you have resource. Resource will have to do with how do we, for instance, deal with the issue of national health care. Our view is that national health care has to be properly thought out. We trust it is still a goal that we can achieve, but we think that we have to think a little wider. In looking at national health care, if we are to give people the quality of health care that they will expect, and we believe that that takes us into a discussion of Greanada as a center for excellence in a number of areas, and it also puts us squarely into the domain of discussing how do we leverage the St. George's University and its programs, as well as Grenadians in the diaspora and others in the diaspora who are either alumni or others related to the university, and also how we use technology as a platform to drive all of this. So we are having a tremendously important discussions in that group, which I stray into every once in a while. But I'm happy to say that this is the kind of issue that TGM wants to deal with and to come up with practical solutions that we can contribute to the development process. I see the last one on health tourism. Health tourism is an important aspect of what we're going to be dealing with. Many colleagues believe there are two approaches. One is where we have people come to Greanada to actually do procedures, and that comes off of what I said, Mr. Crow, on Greanada as a center of excellence. So that you can come to Greanada, you can convalesce in Greanada within the context of a healthy society, healthy diets, healthy nutrition, but extremely good first world medical attention, but without having to pay first world rates. We believe that's important too. So yes, we're seeing all of this as part of the discussion on health, and in the context of health tourism, we want to see how we link that with the tourism product. We believe if we can do that, then we can start thinking about how we displace a number of persons who look to Greanada, for instance, as a destination that they can purchase, for instance, residency from, into a destination where they can reside comfortably for periods in the year because they are close to good medical attention. And of course, they are free to travel to other parts of the world from here. It's a different kind of program without getting into much on the discussion now that's being conceptualized. So it's not just about citizenship by investment. It's about residency because we have a good healthcare program. We have the safest society in the region. We have good institutions around us. We have good justice, law and order, and we have good connectivity. We believe that's the kind of new society that we need to start creating, which gives jobs to a number of young people, professionals in other areas, for instance, in adult care, in geriatric care, with good hospital facilities. We believe the sky is the limit. if we can bring these things together.
Yes, and the sky is the limit. Thank you so very much, Dr. Antoine. And thank you to everybody who asked your questions. Those of you whose questions were not able to be answered at this time, I do apologize, but we have run out of time. Now, if you would like to continue the discussion or join the movement, you can do so at www.thegrenadamovement.org. That's www.thegrenadamovement.org. Thank you guys so much again for joining us.